Nettles. Nettles is one of the most fascinating characters in the Dance of the Dragons, mainly because so many aspects of her life are so deeply shrouded in mystery. The chroniclers of the dance are unsure about who exactly she was, the circumstances of her birth, and the happenings of her life. The novel insists that she was a dragonseed with Valyrian blood, but her appearance gives no hint to that, and her origins are still debatable. Nettles was a skinny, brown-skinned girl with black hair and brown eyes, all of which are features that are the opposite of the other Valyrian bastards who claimed dragons and became riders during the dance. And yet, what's so particularly mysterious about this girl is the fact that despite her non-Valyrian features, she was the only person to claim a wild dragon during the Red Sowing. Nettles claimed the wild dragon Sheepstealer, not with royal blood or commands, but by patience, determination, and cunning. How did she do this? How could a common girl from the docks of Spicetown claim such a formidable beast as Sheepstealer? Also, what was the relationship between this girl and the rogue prince Daemon Targaryen? In Fire and Blood, the chroniclers mentioned that there was a relationship between these two individuals, but accounts disagree about the nature of it, whether it was sweet and paternal or whether it was a bit more romantic. The only thing that the chroniclers know for certain is that whatever happened between them deeply affected Rhaenyra and contributed to her downfall. So what really happened between Nettles and Daemon? Nettles was born on the island of Driftmark, likely to a prostitute who abandoned her at a young age. We know that she was homeless and motherless because she's described that way in Fire and Blood, homeless, motherless, and penniless on the streets of Spicetown and Hull. This tough upbringing shaped her to be foul-mouthed and fearless, as she had to survive all by herself on the streets of Driftmark. There are never any mentions of Nettles' father, but some chroniclers speculate that it must have been a Targaryen, with some going even further to suggest Daemon Targaryen himself was her dad. Daemon Targaryen had a known fondness for pleasure houses since a young age, and could have visited one in Driftmark before heading to the Stepstones with Lord Corlys Velaryon. In 130 AC, Nettles was 16 years old during the Red Sowing, meaning that she was likely born around the same time that the war in the Stepstones was being fought. If so, then this timeline would support the speculation of the Maesters, who believed that Daemon was fond of Nettles because she might have been his secret bastard daughter. However, there isn't any concrete proof of this. In Fire and Blood, the only reason why some of the Maesters suspect that Nettles must have had a Valyrian father is because of the fact that she was able to claim such a wild dragon as Sheepstealer. In the book, the Targaryens, as well as the Valyrians, are said to possess typical Valyrian features, which include silver gold hair, purple eyes, and pale white skin. Everyone who rides a dragon in the books has these features. However, what makes Nettles so particularly interesting is the fact that she looks nothing like a typical Valyrian, and yet she rode one of the biggest dragons during the dance. In the book, it said, in the end, the brown dragon was brought to heel by the cunning and persistence of a small brown girl of 6 and 10 who delivered him a freshly slaughtered sheep every morning until Sheepstealer learned to accept and expect her. In Fire and Blood, Nettles is the only person to ever claim a wild dragon, and she does it through guile and cunning instead of blood. Since they conquered Westeros, the Targaryens have always maintained that only those of Valyrian blood could ride and control dragons. However, Nettles challenges this idea simply by existing, because it is possible that she had no Valyrian blood at all, and yet she tamed a wild dragon that had never been ridden before, bent it to her will, and rode it into battle. In the book, she is even said to have fought valiantly with Sheepstealer, and later, when she fled from Rhaenyra, the dragon flew away with her, bound to her, just as the Targaryen dragons were bound to their riders. How was Nettles, supposedly a common girl, able to do this? It's possible that it was simply because of her patience and cunning, or maybe it was because secretly she had Targaryen blood. But is it possible that there could be a third explanation? In the book, Rhaenyra suggests that Nettles used black magic to bond with Sheepstealer, and at first, that just seems like a jealous, bastard-phobic comment to make towards the girl. However, there could be some merit to it. The original Valyrian dragon tamers were shepherds who used blood and fire magic to bind the beasts to their will. The reason why the words of House Targaryen of fire and blood in the first place are in part to remind them about the key components that are necessary to control their dragons. The Valyrian shepherds knew this too, and it's possible that their sheep played some role in their ritual. In A Game of Thrones, Daenerys uses the blood of a horse for the ritual that gives birth to her dragons, so it's clear that the blood of an animal has some importance in the process. This would explain why Nettles brought sheep to Sheepstealer when she was taming him. Perhaps this was an important step in some ritualistic process, just as it must have been very important for the Valyrian shepherds when they first learned how to tame the dragons. Either way, Nettles was able to conquer Sheepstealer, but by all accounts, that wasn't the only wild dragon that she was able to tame. Another aspect of Nettles' life that tends to be so interesting is her relationship with Daemon Targaryen, the rogue prince. Their relationship is particularly interesting because of its impact on Rhaenyra Targaryen's reign and eventual downfall in King's Landing. Rhaenyra believed that Nettles and her husband Daemon were having an affair with one another, and so she became so jealous of their relationship that it led to the end of her reign. She felt deeply betrayed by Nettles and Daemon, and her perceived treachery drove her into paranoia and madness. Rhaenyra started seeing traitors everywhere and called for the heads of many, including Adam Valyrian and many of her other supporters as well. Of course, Nettles was included in this list of people, as Rhaenyra accused her of using sorcery to seduce her husband and bewitch him. But were Rhaenyra's suspicions a sign of her mental decline, or were they valid given the relationship between Nettles and Daemon? We've discussed how some maesters believed the former, saying that Rhaenyra was simply jealous and paranoid, mainly because Daemon clearly only had a paternal relationship with Nettles, as she was his secret bastard daughter. They see their relationship as one between a father and his beloved daughter, with Daemon doting on the girl as if she were her own. Maester Norrin's accounts state that Daemon only taught her manners and courtesies, educating her on how to curtsy, brush her hair, and dress like a proper lady of the court. It's said that he bought her gifts in light of these lessons, but that it was all sweet and paternal since Daemon really cared for her. However, other chroniclers suggest that Daemon did more than just care for this little brown girl. They suggest that Rhaenyra was right and that there was something more romantic between the two. In his accounts, Maester Norrin goes on to speak of how Daemon and Nettles often took baths with one another, and how they would do so while being naked as their name days. Some chroniclers, like Mushroom, use these passages to point out how Daemon and Nettles had a more intimate relationship with one another. The gifts and the lessons, by insinuation, were therefore a form of grooming that Daemon employed to seduce the young girl before he could couple with her. In the book, Daemon was known for visiting pleasure houses throughout his life, but it was specifically known for bedding prostitutes who were especially young. His lust for young maidens, Mushroom claims, was what drew him into Nettles' arms and out of Rhaenyra's. It's what made him so unfaithful towards his queen. There could be some merit to what Mushroom suggests in the book, because Daemon also seduced Rhaenyra while she was a very young girl and still a maiden. By that example, Mushroom's tale certainly seems to be more plausible than the others. However, Mushroom is also a notorious liar in the book, who embellishes details to make them more dramatic and salacious. It's possible that his account of Nettles and Daemon was untrue, or at least very inaccurate. Sadly, the show will never be able to clarify the matter to us, since they've removed Nettles' character entirely from the story. So was Rhaenyra right, or was she just paranoid and delusional? No one really knows for sure. However, we do know that Rhaenyra sent a letter to Lord Mouton instructing him to execute Nettles by beheading her to prove his loyalty. It's said that Lord Mouton was terrified upon reading this sort of letter, not just because he knew how fond Daemon was of Nettles, but also because he didn't want to kill a guest beneath his own roof. Therefore, he decided to show the letter to Daemon, who read it with great sadness in his eyes. When Nettles asked him about its content, he simply replied that it was a queen's words, but a whore's work. He told Maester Norrin to keep his tongue about the letter, and then he spent his last night with Nettles, though no one knows what they did or what they spoke of. In the morning, they said their final goodbyes, with tears streaming down Nettles' face. And then, Daemon flew towards Harrenhal and to his doom, while Nettles disappeared into the east and was never seen again in court or castle. The last true sighting of Nettles and Sheepstealer was in the Vale, during the reign of Aegon III. Lord Robert Rowan had been sent to lead a royal army up into the mountains to support Lord Joffrey Arryn as he tried to reclaim the Eyrie. But high up near the summit, his men stumbled into a cave where they encountered a big brown dragon and a ragged woman clinging to its back. 60 of them were burned and 16 died, and the dragon flew away with the woman upon its back and was never seen again. However, the mountain clans of the Vale still tell tales that could be linked to Nettles. The mountain clans tell stories of a fire witch who once dwelt into a hidden vale, far away from any road or village, a woman who was worshipped like a god. It's said that young men would approach her to prove their courage, bringing her gifts to try and appease her. Many of them would return with burns on their skin, and many maesters believe that this is where the practice of cutting away a body part and throwing it into the fire originated from. No one can be sure that this was truly Nettles. It likely was, but maybe it wasn't. Nobody truly knows what happened to her. Her life ended the same way that it had begun, shrouded in mystery. Her whole life is one big mystery, with so many important questions. Who were her parents? How was she able to ride a wild dragon like Sheepstealer? What was the true nature of her relationship with Daemon Targaryen? What happened to her after she fled that cave? Nettles is perhaps the most enigmatic character in the whole A Song of Ice and Fire universe. Certainly one of the most fascinating and compelling. But what do you think? Let me know down below in the comments section and click the thumbs up button if you liked this video. Thank you for watching. Peace.